Hey there, I am Garrett with Allegiant Property Service, and today I thought I'd spend a little bit of time and discuss legislation. More specifically, I want to talk about the laws of Colorado and how they affect you if you are a landlord or property owner and you're wanting to rent your property out and self-manage that property. What happens is unknowingly, and I think unintentionally, landlords aren't knowledgeable of the numerous laws that are on the books regarding renting out properties. And those laws get violated pretty regularly, and that can lead to fines and lawsuits and just an overall headache. What I'm going to do today is I am only going to go over 4 laws. Again, there are a bunch, so make sure you know them all if you're planning on renting your property out. I'm going to go over 4 of those laws today in a little bit more detail. I'll let you know what those laws are in just a second, but if you like this content and you want to see more information on residential property management, go ahead and click like and subscribe. All right, let's get into it. So the 4 laws that I'm going to go over today. The first bill that I'll go into is House Bill 24-1098, which goes into just cause for evictions, and it goes into what they term as no-fault evictions. So I'll explain that in some detail. The next law I'll go into is Senate Bill 24-094, which deals with Colorado's warranty of habitability, which has been on the books for a while, but this updates it regarding the procedures within it, so to speak. The third one that I will go into is House Bill 24-1007. That deals with occupancy limits. And then last but not least, everybody's favorite topic, pets. The rules now regarding them have changed a bit. That one is House Bill 23-1068. So yeah, let's get into House Bill 24-1098, which became effective April 19th, 2024. Basically, what this law states is you have to have a justified reason to terminate a tenancy, or basically to not offer a renewal of a tenancy. So first I'm going to get into justified reasons of terminating a tenancy. So the first one I'll talk about is non-payment of rent. So it is a justified reason here in Colorado to terminate a tenancy if you have a tenant that just doesn't pay rent. And another reason to terminate a tenancy here in Colorado is for a substantial lease violation. You may ask yourself, what is a substantial lease violation? And you guessed it, you have to do a lot more reading and a lot more digging into a different state statute to figure out exactly what they mean by that, but it is in there, and I would encourage you to make yourself familiar with it if you plan on renting your place out. Another reason that you can terminate a tenancy here in Colorado would be for a material violation of the lease or a rental agreement. Another reason that you could terminate a tenancy here is for a repeat violation after receiving notification of such violation. And again, so those are a few of the reasons that you can terminate a tenancy here in Colorado. By no means are those the only reasons that you can do so. There are other reasons that are detailed in statute. And again, I would encourage you to make sure you're aware of those reasons. And that brings me to kind of the second part of this law, which I think is interesting. Statute, or in the language in the statute, they call these next 6 instances no-fault evictions, which I find interesting that they still call them evictions, even though they're saying it is not the fault of the tenant. And what's important to note about these 6 situations that I'm about to describe is that you have to wait till the end of the rental term for these to go in effect. And for all 6 of them, you must give the tenant at a minimum 90 days notice of what's happening. So those are 2 pretty important factors regarding these 6 situations. All right, so the first one of what they are calling a no-fault eviction is if the landlord plans on demolishing or converting the property, you can not offer a lease renewal. But again, like I said, you have to give 90 days notice that this is occurring. So conversion means changing the property basically from a rental into something else. The second situation that would be considered a no-fault eviction would be if the landlord plans on doing substantial repairs or renovations to the property. Again, that same 90 days applies, and you can only do so at the end of whatever lease you have ongoing. The third reason that they're calling a no-fault eviction would be if the landlord himself or herself or a landlord's family member wants to move back into the property at the end of current lease, and you have to provide that tenant 90 days notice that that's going to occur. The fourth thing that they call a no-fault eviction is if the landlord is going to withdraw the property from the rental market and then subsequently sell the property. There are some guidelines as to what that sale is to look like after the end of the lease. And then the fifth incident that can be categorized as a no-fault eviction is if you make a reasonable offer to renew a lease and that tenant refuses to sign that lease. In essence, what they're saying is that is a no-fault eviction. The last thing they define as a no-fault eviction would be non-payment of rent. And basically that's defined as if a tenant submits rent payments late more than twice during any lease, that would qualify as a no-fault eviction. Again, you have to wait until the end of that lease for that to go in effect, and they would still need the 90 days notice ahead of time. Okay, let's discuss Senate Bill 24-094, which deals with Colorado's warranty of habitability. Now, the warranty of habitability has been around since 2008, and basically it just says that you as a property owner who is intending to rent that property out to the general public must provide a residence that is fit for human habitation. It goes in and details things like running water, hot water, heat, electrical wiring, gas plumbing, rodent infestation. It details things about trash and rubbish on the property. So basically it's just saying if you're going to provide a rental property in Colorado, that it must conform to these rules, and basically it has to be habitable for humans. So that's been around for a while. What this Senate bill did that went effective, May 3rd, 2024, it basically just established some procedural changes within the warranty of habitability. So basically it changed or added or clarified some timeframes for when a landlord must communicate with the tenant and commence remedial action regarding some of these issues. It does add in there, it requires a landlord to perform a certain conduct or a certain way to address an uninhabitable condition until it's fixed or remedied. It basically also defines when a landlord is presumed to have been given notice of such an inhabitable situation. It also requires that the landlord maintain all records and correspondence and communication surrounding one of these instances. And then one of the significant things that it did add was that it didn't go to effect right away as soon as the bill was passed, but back on January 1st, 2025, any lease after that date has to have in the actual lease the actual particular verbiage in a particular font, in a particular size of the warranty of habitability in the lease. So that's something new that you need to be aware of if you're renting your place out. Basically, the Senate bill clarifies certain conditions or characteristics of a residential premise that are considered uninhabitable. And then one of the big ones here that's pretty frightening for, I think, landlords is there is some language in there that would require a landlord to provide a tenant a comparable dwelling unit or hotel room up to 60 days while the landlord addresses any uninhabitable condition that materially interfere with the tenant's life, health, or safety. So just kind of in summary, the warranty of habitability has been around for a while now. It ensures that you as a property owner and a landlord and me as a management company, that we are providing good, healthy, habitable places for folks to live in. So that's been around for a while. And again, this Senate bill just clarifies that, makes it a little more stricter, and throws in a few new requirements surrounding the warranty of habitability. But again, it's a big one if you are renting your place out, that you are very familiar with this and you make sure you're not violating any of these things. There's time frames involved. Let's just say, for instance, should the hot water heater go out, so now your property doesn't provide hot water, which is obviously part of the warranty of habitability. So there's timeframes now involved when you must contact the tenant and when you must have that remedied. So make sure you know these. They're important. You don't want to find yourself in a lawsuit or getting fined for violating any of these. So if you feel like some of these laws are a bit overwhelming and you'd rather have a professional company manage your property, that's where Allegiant comes in. We are a value-based company. We take a great deal of pride in what we do. So if you'd rather hand this off to a professional, feel free to reach out. I'd love to chat with you at any point. And if you just want to call and you have questions, I'd be more than happy to guide you in the right direction. All right, moving right along. Let's talk about House Bill 24-1007, which deals with occupancy limits. So if you're familiar with Fort Collins, you may have heard of a rule called U+2. And basically what that rule was, that no more than 3 unrelated individuals could live together in a single dwelling unit. Basically, it said 3 or more people from a different family couldn't live together by rule. So that rule was a municipal law. It's been on the books since 1964 until last year in 2024, when this House bill did away with it. So now the House bill states basically that no local municipalities can enforce occupancy limits based on family. Now, that being said, they do have the ability to enforce occupancy limits based on health and safety, things like the International Building Code or the phone. So the last one I want to talk about is House Bill 23-1068, which deals with pets. So yeah, we love our pets here in Colorado. So this one is very important to know, because if you're going to rent your own property out, there's a really good chance that you're going to have applicants that want to bring pets. I think the last number that I checked was about 70% of applicants in Colorado bring a pet with them, want to bring a pet with them at least. So it's important to know this one. Basically, what the House bill states is that there is a maximum $300 refundable deposit allowable per pet. Now, you can do that per pet. Just be cautious to not violate security deposit rules, which state security deposit rules can't be more than twice the monthly income. The other important part of this legislation is that it caps pet rent $35 per month, or 1.5% of the rent, whichever is greater, and that is not per pet. So you can only tack on the $35 or 1.5% of the rent.